up, everybody? How you doing today? This is PULVER. I am the host of the all-new Just Scrap Radio here on BJPenn.com. Sitting here in my chair, getting ready to interview somebody that I can't wait. I mean, I'm excited because I think we've been through so many different things, from ping pong to fighting to chatting to coaching against each other. It's just been an insane ride with this young man. And so I'm actually pretty excited now that I get to sit here and interview him. I think a lot of people are going to get a kick out of this little marriage. I have him on the line right now. My first guest, my inaugural guest, BJ Penn. How you doing today, BJ?
How's it going, Jen? Thank you very much for being involved with Just Scrap Radio, and thank you for doing this interview.
Oh, my friend, I'll tell you what, when I got the offer, I was, the call, I was thinking, seriously? I'm like, oh, my, yeah. We don't actually have to compete one time, and we can hang out, and we're on the same team. Finally, after 10 years, it was almost impossible to say no. So first off, I couldn't say thank you enough, and I'm so excited that I'm like a kid in a candy store. I'm really jumpy, and I'm just oof, but to know that I think that people will now finally get to see you and I actually talking and not trying to throw jabs at each other, will change the way they look at things,
Yeah, no doubt, man.
So right off the bat, where are you? What's going on? What's been happening with you?
I'm actually I'm still up in Sweden right now. I just we went to the first UFC Sweden up here. It was Gustafsson versus Thiago Silva. I don't know if you got to see the show. It was on Fuel TV. It was a great show. It just goes to show how much the sport is growing. It's growing leaps and bounds. I mean, we did a signing up here. It was me, Tito, Czech Congo, and Jake Shields in a small little fight shop, and I mean, we had 500 people standing outside in the snow, and I mean in real snow. It was snowing, and everybody was outside. It's cold in Sweden, and the fans are pumped. Everybody's pumped. The show went well. The Swedes were really behind their fighters, Gustafsson and everybody. They had all their little chants going and the different things. MMA is becoming very big news very fast.
It's definitely come a long way from, I think, when you and I were first starting out and, getting into this crazy little sport of MMA, and then to see it lining up like that. But I heard a word in there. I heard something in your statement, in your answer. Did you say snow? Are you in the snow out there in Sweden? You know what? It's cold. It's cold, Jen. It's a big change for me from being from Hawaii. At first it wasn't bad. It was a nice little change, but it's starting to wear me down a little. But it's beautiful over here. They got a old town, Stockholm, and they got different things. But it's nice. But from here, I got tomorrow morning, we fly out to Puerto Rico to do a viewing party for the Rashad Evans John Jones fight. So we're gonna help with the promotion of the UFC down there in Puerto Rico. Well, that's got to be quite the change to be able to go from the snow and then head down to Puerto Rico, and you guys are going to get to hang out in a little more of a exotic, kind of put you back in your environment, so to speak, huh? Yeah, definitely. I'm excited to get down there and see how it is. Yeah, that's what I'm picturing. I'm just picturing another Hawaii. That's what I expect. Now, since you're doing this traveling around, I mean, you're not cornering anybody in this. Are you just kind of have you become another ambassador of fun for the UFC, or is this just a one-time deal, or is this something that we can expect to see and hear more, in future UFCs, that there's going to be a BJ Penn going around and hanging out in these new places?
You know what? That's actually what it's kind of been since my last fight. I flew out to the Philippines, and I just been I've been doing this actually quite a bit over the years for the UFC. You know, kind of like you said, being a UFC ambassador type role, traveling around, going into these new markets, and trying to help them open it up and get fans and get everybody excited about the sport. And I like it. I don't mind doing it at all. It's fun. I get to see new places, and it's cool. I get to see all the new fans and see all the sports growing. It's just crazy. It's on another level. I mean, we know how big the sport is in the U.S. and we know we know the NBA, NFL, and all that stuff, and how big everything is in the U.S. But the UFC is really catching on internationally, and it's there's no stopping this thing. It's just going to keep going.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I still remember when people are back in the day. I mean, we were lucky and happy to be able to go to Japan, and I remember how just excited everybody was when we got into Vegas, you know, and we're thinking when this sport blows up. But, I mean, talking to the other godfather of the lightweight division, I can only imagine what you think when you're traveling to all these different places, you know, across the globe, and to see that UFC logo, and to see people wearing, I'm sure they're wearing the BJ Penn clothing, and, you know, and you're sitting there telling yourself, wow, I'm in Puerto Rico, and this is going off. So I mean, that's probably never has to get boring to be able to go to these new places and just see how big, you know, the sport and what you have created has gotten.
Yeah, you're right, man. You're right. I mean, from back when me and you were throwing down in the cage. I remember my first UFC when I fought Joey Gilbert, and I remember being in one of the back UFC rooms, and I remember you walking in, and I remember thinking, that's him, that's the guy, that's the champ. I remember thinking that, and just going back to thinking about the sport, about how long it came. I mean, I think we sold out, and there was 2,500 people. I think it was the Trump. I don't know if it was the Trump Taj Mahal, what it was. I forget what it was. You remember that though? Where was that? You were the champ already though, because I remember looking. Huh?
Well, I think we were in Atlantic City because that was our big break. And the one guy I was trying to remember was the commissioner that brought us in, Larry Hazard Sr., I believe. And
That's
so we were
right.
fighting in Atlantic City, right?
That's right. It was Atlantic City. You know what's funny? I was just thinking about it now. I remember you walking in, and I remember looking at you thinking, that's the champ, and I remember sizing you up, you know, thinking, I think I got a shot against this guy.
Sure. I remember sitting there because now, I mean, a lot of people, back then especially, that Joey Gilbert him and Danny Gilbert were my first roommates in college. And when I went to Boise State, they were he was a really good wrestler from Michigan. And I remember when you were getting ready to fight him, and I started hearing the hype. I mean, a lot of hype about this BJ Penn, man. He's this black belt, and he's phenomenal at jiu-jitsu, and he's the prodigy, and I'm hearing it from Frank. And so I remember sitting there watching the fight, and he just dismantled him quick. And I'm like, I remember the shock in my face. I'm just, oh my goodness, holy cow, look at this kid. And so every time I had to go after that, I had to keep my poker face going. I'm like, yeah, I'm not afraid of him, but in my mind I'm just thinking, oh my goodness, you know what I mean? I was just blown away, and then from there, watching you just dismantle people, I remember I commentated you fought Cal Uno. And I believe that one was in Atlantic City. And I remember sitting there commentating, and you stepped out there extremely fired up. How was that fight? Because when I fought Cal, again, he was basically the number one guy at our weight class. And I know I was nervous, but watching you go out there, what was that mindset like? Because you knew he was still kind of the epitome. I know I was the champ, but he was still that guy to beat in my mind. How was that stepping in for that fight?
Well, I remember everybody. Well, I knew how good Uno was, and I remember everybody. You know what's actually funny was that I got offered a fight. I think John Lewis offered me a fight to fight Kao Uno in King of the Cage. And then I had one fight when I was 18, and this was before the UFC or anything. And then I remember that I was getting ready for the fight. I think I trained like a week for it. I didn't even know how to train. I just, whatever I thought was training, trained for like a week for the fight. And then they pulled him out, and they said he's got the UFC title shot against Jens Pulver. I clearly remember that. But after coming up to the Kao Uno fight, I think I might have just been a young cocky kid at that time. I think I was full of myself after I beat Dean Thomas. I think, but everybody was telling me that me and Uno were going to go to decision. It's going to be a great fight, and it's going to go to decision. So I was kind of listening to them, but in other ways, I was kind of thinking like, maybe I'll get to submit this guy, but I still don't know today. Has Uno ever been submitted? I don't know if he ever has.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say no, not to my knowledge. I remember sitting there watching him fight Rumina Sato, and he got out of, he had to battle out of that rear naked choke. I think it happened in 2 fights that they had, and he spent a long time with Rumina on his back, and Rumina couldn't even submit him back then. So I don't think he's ever been.
Yeah, and I think I remember watching. I think somebody had a tape, or I seen a video of him fighting Aoki, and I don't think he was submitted in that fight either. He got himself in some bad positions, but he's amazing. He always gets out somehow.
Yeah, very rubbery. But I do remember this. I'm sitting there, and but at this point, the name BJ Penn is buzzing around the UFC, and I still remember this to this day. You went out there and you floated Uno. No disrespect to Uno. You lambasted him, and boom, up the railing you go. You take off, do this business right out of the cage. You're gone. And there was at one point I'm sitting there. I got the headset on. We're live, and I'm thinking in my mind. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I just witnessed the greatest fighter I've ever seen just dismantle a guy I went 25 minutes with. And I remember sitting there, someone goes, I do not envy you, Jens Pulver. You're going to be fighting BJ Penn. And the only thing that could pop up was, well, he's not evil. He's not me.
Yeah.
That was the only thing I had going for me.
I was just thinking about that. And I remember I think the words were, he's good, but he ain't evil. I remember something like, I was just thinking about that right now. Another thing, too, before we fought, I remember another thing was, because I remember, you have to keep yourself, of course, confident, too, coming up into the fight. But I remember you did an interview where you're like, we seen it, we watched the tape, and we seen his opening. So I was watching the Uno fight, and I was like, where's the opening he keeps talking about? Is it because I dropped that hand when I went to punch Uno or something? But I remember seeing that, and I remember in one of your interviews, and you were just, and that's just how the fight game is. But before the fight, you were just talking, and you were like, yeah, we seen it, we seen the opening, and as soon as that opening opens up, he's gonna be picking his teeth out of his cheeks. I remember that.
Oh, buddy, I remember. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Jen.
Oh, I'm just saying, because I remember, again, the place is going nuts, and there was a part of me, I was an instant fan. I was an instant fan watching you dismantle everybody I had tough fights with. You dismantled the man I looked up to. You dismantled the guy I lost to in Dean Thomas, and I'm sitting there. The funny part was like, okay, I think I found the one opening in the whole 20 seconds of watching DJ just dismantle Uno. And so all I kept thinking is, all right, I got him. I found it. But I remember looking at my little brother Abel going, I have no idea what I'm going to do against this guy. Yeah,
man.
it was,
good time.
it was something. Oh, I'll tell you what. And then I just remember, when we got to headline out there at the Mohegan Sun, something happened where we ended up being on the same plane together, flying in to Connecticut. And I remember walking on the plane going,
I remember that.
Oh my God, he's right. Here comes
Jeremy on the plane.
Yep, we had Jeremy and Matt Hughes, I think, was with me, and Monty Cox, and then I see you guys get on, and I'm thinking, obviously my heart again falls down into the pit of my stomach, and I'm thinking, oh my God, there he is. So now I have to hurry up and reach for my poker face and throw that thing on real quick.
Yeah, you were ready though, man. That was your time, and you were ready, man. I gotta say, you're the man, Jen. You're the man.
Oh, brother, let me tell you something. I'll tell you the part that, and it kind of goes just off of that. I mean, I was rolling off of that. I still had a lot of that anger. And my question was for you, because I know when you were exploding in there, and you were from that point on, especially, what kept after that fight? What kept you going? I remember you would fight at 220 pounds if you wanted to. You were doing it just for the pure love of fighting people. You're fighting Enzo Gracie. You were all over the place. Did you not? You fought, oh, man, I'm trying to think about 205-pounder. I can't even remember. You were fighting in all these different weight classes. Yeah, and I'm thinking, man, he must really love this sport. So I guess my question was, what was it about fighting that gave you that drive back then, even after that title fight, that kept you fighting all the different weight classes and just the challenge of it?
Because I was on, like you said, the hype was so big, and I was on such a fast, the hype train was going and everything, and then when you derailed that, I remember going back to California, and I was just in a shock. I was just in shock after that. I slept on the couch. I just slept on the couch for like 2 weeks, and it just went by like a blur. And from there, I didn't know what I was gonna do. I was just hanging out and not doing much. I didn't know anything. I didn't know if I was ever gonna fight again. I was in shock. Everything, you're at the top of the world once. That's all of our lives in fighting. You're at the top of the world 1 second, and the next second you're on the bottom. That's just the nature of the game. But from there, what happened next? I think I had a few fights. Some were kind of lackluster fights here and there. But why I remember my first time when I was getting. I think it's the same reason. What about the fighting was the same thing. Like that's one of the reasons why the Joey Gilbert fight is one of my favorite fights. I remember when I was walking in, and I remember thinking, this is it. This is the chance. This is my time where I prove that I'm not just some street fighter, where I can actually fight against someone who's actually training, and they're actually training to compete against myself. And I just thought that was the coolest thing. I just thought there's nothing cooler in the whole world than going up against, in a mixed martial arts fight, going up against somebody who is actually trained in an art also, and who is actually training to take you personally out. I just thought that was the coolest thing, and I just thought that was the most pure, best sport ever possibly created. And going around and competing, in jiu-jitsu, they always had the absolute division, and I would always compete in the absolute division. So it was kind of just like a natural thing. You go to the gym, you end up wrestling people your size, people smaller than you, people bigger than you, and I always believed in the technique, whether it be boxing, kickboxing, wrestling, judo, jiu-jitsu, whatever it may be. I always believed in the technique, and I always believed. Yeah, I always believed that if you did it correctly, and faster and was smarter about it or whatever it may be, I always believed that it would be able to show through, and I just was fortunate to get the opportunities that I've had over my career.
I'll tell you what. I think the one thing, and I mean, we're sitting here, we're talking now, and I've always wanted to know the one. I think how you looked at the sport was the first thing that really made me nervous about you, because the way I did it, it was purely off emotion, off of anger, off of how I grew up, off of everything that I did. But to watch you go out there, you did it because it was a challenge, and you did it because you just loved the competition, and that's what really, made me extremely nervous about fighting you, or, just about the fighter that you are and were. It was just the way that you, spiritually, so to speak, the way you just looked at a challenge every time, no matter what size they were. Always, that was the intimidator every time when I had to deal with the name VJ Penn, was just the way that you looked at it completely different than I ever had that gift of doing. And so the one thing I always wondered was how and what got you into jiu-jitsu? How did that start? I mean, old school question, but I've always wanted to know that answer. Did someone just come up to you one day and say, hey, I want you to start doing jiu-jitsu?
You know what it was my dad was actually a judo black belt, and he would always try to take us to martial arts as kids, and it was never for us. We never liked it. I guess he probably took us to karate or judo or taekwondo, all these different things, but we'd go 1 or 2 days and then we'd stop. We were just never into it. As I got into, as I got a little older, probably, 4th grade to 8th grade, I really liked the WWF. Of course, everybody did at that time. Yeah. And so I kind of always, liked, I knew there was something about being a champion in some kind of sport, watching Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair and all those people. I knew that being the champion was cool. It was all about getting the belt. So I kind of had that, in my head a little bit. But I don't know, as I got older, I don't know where it just clicked in me, or sometime in high school, or something just clicked into me where I started liking fighting. I started, thinking about it. My uncle always used to tell me, I always used to talk to him about it and talk to him about fighting. Like, we'd be at the racquetball court, I'd be watching all the adults play, and I'd walk up to him and say, like, who'd win if you fought that guy? Or what would happen if that guy fought that guy? Who would win? I guess I kind of always just, I just had a thing about it. I always kind of liked, something about human beings that, that they like to test themselves against each other, and other people like to watch it, for some reason. That's the way we're made. But from there, I remember one day asking my dad for some boxing gloves for Christmas or whatever. So he finally, Christmas came around and got some boxing gloves, and then I remember this kid he's a little older, about 3 years older, but he was my size, and I remember putting on the gloves with him the first time, and I was so afraid to get hit, and I just kept ducking my head and running away, and I did that. It was just hell, the first time, because he was older, he was more comfortable in a confrontational situation, I guess. And then the next time I did it, I just kind of realized, like, it doesn't hurt that bad, getting punched, it doesn't hurt. And then I kind of started lighting him up a little bit, and then I just kind of hung around with a lot of kids who were always, into fighting, and, we're all into those kind of things, rough kids. We were always, swimming in rivers, jumping off waterfalls, and wrestling with each other, boxing with each other. So at about 17, I wasn't doing much, just hanging out. But all the kids know. Yeah, after high school, all the kids, we'd all walk down to my house, and I had 2 pairs of gloves. I had 4 gloves. So we'd always be boxing and doing different things. And then just so happened, a Taekwondo instructor by the name of Tom Callis, he moved on the same road as I did, a few houses down, and he saw us. He just saw the kids always. I think we just got out of high school at that time, and he would always see the kids, just kind of walking up and down the road, playing around, getting into trouble or whatever we were doing. He was actually a Taekwondo instructor, but he took a couple of jiu-jitsu lessons from Ralph Gracie, and he was just a white belt. You know, he just maybe took like 2 or 3 private lessons. I don't know what it was, but he kept asking he got in touch with my father, and he kept asking him to bring the kid. Well, he seen me, you know, he was just right on the same street. He kept asking my dad to bring the kids down, and my dad would come up to me, and you know, he said, "Hey, you want to try that?" And I remember the UFC. I remember the first UFC fight that I saw was Pat Smith, and Pat Smith knocked out Scott Morris, I think it was. I forget who exactly it was, but when he elbowed him, I remember watching that, and I was like, "This is cool." But you know what? I was never into it. I remember kind of maybe like cheering for Hoist a little bit, you know, watching different things. But I didn't think that was for me, you know. And but anyway, the guy kept bugging my dad. My dad came and asked me. I was like, no, I don't need it. I'm not interested. I'm not interested in jiu-jitsu. No, I'm fine. I thought boxing was cool and different things. I loved Evander Holyfield. That was when he was the champion. You know, he was everything at that time. I think Mike Tyson was in jail, so I just remember the wars with Riddick Bowe and Evander Holyfield. You know, that was just the best thing ever to me. And so I was just kind of really pro boxing, and he kept asking my dad. Finally, my dad comes and he goes, "You know what? Just go one time. Just go one time. This guy won't leave me alone. He won't bother me. After you go, I'll tell him. I'll tell him. No, he went. He doesn't like it." So I got a couple of my buddies, and these buddies, I'm sure they're kicking themselves in their butts right now because they came down with me on my first day. You know, I got choked. The guy choked me out. He arm locked me and tapped me out and stuff. And my buddies, you know, they came with me for a couple days after that, and then they just never came again, you know, and they must be kicking themselves in the butts because they'd all probably be, you know, maybe black belts, maybe with schools or something, you know, who knows. Martial arts is always a good outlet for everybody. And from there, I just remember getting choked out and did different things, and I was like, if I learn this, no one will ever be able to mess with me anywhere, you know. You know how it is. If you know wrestling and jiu-jitsu, I mean, to someone who has no clue, who doesn't even know it exists, who doesn't even know it's coming at all, I mean, you're like Superman compared to the other guy. You know, he has no chance at all. You know, stuff like wrestling and jiu-jitsu, I mean, it was created to make one man be Superman. It's so amazing, the different techniques and just the knowledge of everything. But so from there, I just started realizing that, you know, this is something else, and then it just like slowly started just taking over my life. I mean, I never did it to be a world champion in jiu-jitsu or to be a world champion in mixed martial arts. I was just doing it for fun, and then my father, I wasn't doing much, and he kind of just wanted me to get out of town, and he was like, if you're not working or going to school by a certain time, because we ended up going to California. That was like one of the first times I ever left Hawaii, and then the guy took me to Ralph Gracie school, and we were up there, and Ralph was like, you know, you could be good, man. You know, you're really good. I like your style. But I was just kind of like a guy who would just watch videos, you know, learn leg locks and learn different things. I was just kind of a home study person in jiu-jitsu because I had the white belt trainer. I remember we just had some different jiu-jitsu videos, and there were very few at that time. You know, I think maybe Renzo Gracie was one of them. There wasn't too many. But from there, my dad just kind of, you know, kept what happened. Yeah, he was like, if you're not working or going to school, I had a couple of odd jobs here and there for the employment agency, doing some landscaping or working at some different offices and things around town, or stocking milk or something. Just small little like, you know, because we have an employment agency actually in Hilo, and you know, I was kind of just playing around with that, and then but I was kind of slacking off also, and my dad's like, you know what, if you're not doing anything, I'm gonna send you up in 2 or 3 months, and then by 2 or 3 months came around, I wasn't doing anything,
and he kind of sent me up, and I was just really bummed out. I didn't want to leave Hawaii. I didn't want to leave my high school girlfriend, all that kind of stuff. You know how that is when you're kids. And
of course.
And then the next thing I knew, I was up there, and the rest is history, I guess.
How was that going in? Because I remember, I was always afraid of the Brazilians when you first started watching, the UFC and, Gracie. They would do the big super train when he would come out to fight. They had everybody holding on to everybody. And it's funny you say Ralph, because I think, he was in the Sports Illustrated a long time ago. I thought they had an article on him doing the fighting. I think John Lewis might have been fighting. That fighting card that was also on pay-per-view, and Kenny Monday was in it. They had some pretty good fighters in there, and it was one of the old-school pay-per-views. I remember hearing about House and, a couple of the other Gracies fighting in that as well. Man, it's so old school sometimes, though. I have a hard time remembering the names of them. But I remember all those guys fighting. I remember Half. And so when you went, did you ever go down, you went down to Brazil to train or just compete when you got in, as jiu-jitsu progressed farther and farther for you?
Yeah, I remember my first jiu-jitsu tournament. I was scared. It was just like a fight. And I remember they called my name, and I was like, "What? I'm up, and everybody's gonna watch." I was real nervous. I was scared, man. But I ended up. I've been down to Brazil to train. I would go down to compete, but at the same time, maybe I'd go like a week early or something, or a week later, or I'd stay a week later and kind of get some training in and doing some different things. But the first time I went to Brazil, coming from Hawaii, and I think I was only 18 when I was in Brazil. It was a culture shock for me. Headed down, I didn't even know what to expect. I remember I went down. I think I was with Dave Camarillo and another one of the jiu-jitsu guys I trained with. This guy Greg Rivera, and it was just a trip. To go down to the Mecca of jiu-jitsu and to see it and to see everybody training. I think we were at Gracie Baja, and then later on in my jiu-jitsu career, I ended up training with Andre Pederneiras, with Novo União, and they just had all kinds of good guys in there, from Shaolin, Leo Santos, Hobson Mora. You name it, the list just keeps going on and on. All world champions. They had everybody in there, and we were all. Yeah, we were just going at it day in and day out, head to head. It was amazing, man. It was good stuff, good times.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, and then, of course, obviously you went in, and then all of a sudden, like I said, here you come, springing into the world of MMA, and I'm just, oh, buddy. I was like, look at this kid. I still remember, man. I'm, again, big fan, so it's hard for me not to sit back and think, oh, my goodness, watching this kid do his thing is just insane. There's a few fights, at least in my mind, that, I think one of my favorite fights of yours is watching you fight Sean Shirk. And, so I always wanted to ask you, what were some of the better fights for you? What are the fights that I'm not going to say your toughest or your easiest or anything like that, but from what were the better fights for you that you remember, in the UFC, not in the UFC? Which ones did you, because you're BJ, so I'm going to say it, which ones did you actually enjoy, throughout your career? Did you enjoy being in the cage against them? And you can say me if you want.
You know what? You know what? I always, when anyone asks me, what was your favorite fight? Of course we know as fighters, nothing is easy. Even if the fight ends up looking easy, it ain't easy, whatever. It just happened that way. Nothing's easy. It just happened that way. And with that said, people ask me what my favorite fight is. I always go back to the Joey Gilbert time. I remember remember the old UFC music? They'd always play that old, which one I'm talking about, the entrance song. But I remember walking down, and I remember kind of tearing and crying and thinking, though, like, I was scared, like, I'm going to be locked in the cage with this other guy, And then
And then from there, I guess the Joey Gilbert fight, and then, of course, the fight with Matt. You know, that's one of the fights that kind of cemented me. You know what's funny is fighting. I think you asked me like what made you go out and fight all those people over the years. You know, you fought Lyoto, you fought all these Henzo, you fought these different weights, and you did that. And you know, a lot of it, I was still you know, because I wanted to just fight and I wanted to do my 4 fights. I never expected myself to be around in the mixed martial arts and UFC that long. I wanted to get the belt from you, and I wanted to walk away and rest. But Jens Pulver didn't want to let me do that. You know, still till today. You know, I remember thinking that this is about maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I remember thinking, am I still fighting today? Just still trying to avenge that one loss? Am I still trying to avenge that one loss? You know, still fighting, you know, because all I wanted to do was those 4 fights, and you know, maybe the UFC got big later, that would be good, but you know, I'm not involved. You know, maybe people come and start talking about the UFC, I'll be like, hey, you know, I used to be the champion, look, that's my belt over there. You know, and maybe they wouldn't believe me, maybe they would, maybe they wouldn't, but you know, I'm serious about that though. I think you know, I mean, I haven't been fighting, you know, right now I got no fights lined up or any of that, but you know, I think I'm still avenging that one time I got beat. I think we all are in certain ways, you know, and it just, you know, to just constantly better yourself. But if we're just talking about the fights, the Joey Gilbert fight, the Matt Hughes fight, you know, that definitely made my career, boosted me up there. And hey, do you and Matt ever talk like you know, because you ended up beating the guys that beat him. You know, you ended up beating me. You beat Dennis Hallman. You know, just different things. Do you and Matt ever talk? You guys joke around about that or what?
No, you know, I mean, it was definitely one of the things that I always wondered. I don't know if we ever really brought it up. I think, you know, because we never tried to, you know, throw in each other's faces, well, you lost it. But I think the biggest thing was I always had that fear, and then I always thought about it too, especially with Hallman, you know, because Hallman had beaten him twice real fast. And then, you know, same thing when you beat him, you know, I always wondered that. I'm like, well, why? You know, why is it that here's this guy that can just own me in the practice room. This kid can just, you know, he can beat the mess out of me, but yet I have wins over a couple of guys that, you know, just had his number. But it never really dawned on me as far as, I wonder, you know, I never asked him, you know, why or what happened. It's just, that was our job, you know. We made each other mean, and it just the way it was, I guess, you know, each fight.
You just kept that to yourself, huh?
Pretty much. I mean, yeah, it definitely pops up. Yeah, it definitely pops up. I mean, you definitely wonder.
Yeah, every time he kicks your butt in the gym, you walk away and look back and say, I still beat the 2 guys that you couldn't beat.
Oh, I'll tell you what. Oh, I mean, there were just times going with Matt where we'd be on the ground, and that was just his world. I mean, I remember him holding my wrist, and I would try to wiggle my hand free, and I'm like, you know, and finally I just went limp. I'm like, forget it. And he's like, what? Come on. I go, I can't get out. What? I go, I can't get free. I've never felt a man-child like this before. I go, I can't get away. And then the next day would be sparring, and of course then it was my time to go, all right, remember yesterday when you did this? And then it'd just be a hi-ya, you know, start going after him and try to make up for the wrestling days, you know. But yeah, it was just, yeah, it's always weird about that. I mean, how far he's gotten, and you know, the fights that he's had, and then for some reason there was just, you know, a couple of people that I beat that he didn't, and it was just, you know, I always look at it like, it is what it is, you know, I guess. But I'll tell you what, here was the other one I wanted to, I have to talk to you. Go ahead, huh?
No, you're right. Styles make fights, man. That's all it is. And like we know, no one's tougher. No, like you said, if Matt Hughes is on you on the ground, you're in a bad place. You're in a very bad place.
Yep. I've always said 2 things. Matt weighing down on somebody, he makes you work 3 times as hard as he's working just to get out from underneath him. And the one I've always said is, you do not want BJ Penn on top of you. There is no ifs, ands, buts on the world. BJ on his back, okay. BJ standing up, okay. BJ on top of you, watch out because this is not going to be funny. And I mean, I hated that life. I still remember, man, after that armbar, I'm thinking, I remember walking back to the corner just going, and I've had to answer that question so many times and just thinking, what, really? I'm going to go into this third round and, oh, this is going to be awesome. He's just going to take me down and submit me and just start rolling me up again. And it was humbling, you know, but, yeah, each person had their powerful spots, you know. And speaking of humbling, I have to ask, people ask me all the time, but I got to ask you personally. Hey, how was coaching on the Ultimate Fighter season 5?
Oh, how did I like it?
Yeah, how did you like season 5?
I did. I liked it. It was good. It was busy though, you know, and I think I made a bad mistake by making my practice so early, you know, because that means I had to get up at 6 a.m. also and be down there, and that was stupid of me, you know. But I was trying to run it a professional or whatever, I guess, which was a big mistake. But I did. I enjoyed it. And you know what? If I would go back and I had another shot to do it, all I would tell the guys, I would say, hey, everyone here, I know you guys know what to do. I know you guys have made it this far. You guys have had your special things you like to do. Just let me know if you need anything. That's all I'd say. You know, I wouldn't try to be like, okay, we got this set up for you. We got this set up for you. You know, if I ever did it again, that's all I'd ever say. Let me know what you need, and I'll help you out. You know, and other than that, I know you guys are big boys. I know you guys can take care of yourselves. So, you know, I got the coaches here if you need any problem in any areas, and you just give me the heads up if you need anything. I'll be there. But
yeah, learn to just kind of sit back and let them do their thing and just kind of open the door for them and make sure they're stretching and eating and tell them have fun.
Yeah. What about you? What do you think about that whole thing?
You know, I think there was a couple of things. The weirdest part was it seemed like almost every time I would show up to practice, I would see Dana White's rover out there, and I'm thinking, oh, my God, what'd they do this time, you know, because you had the floor before me, so I'm thinking, oh, man, what'd they do in the house, you know, what happens now, you know, and then hearing the whole, the most technical street fight ever, and Marlon Sims, isn't it, Marlon was breaking it down. He wrote a 3-page essay, and he's reading it to me, telling me this happened and this happened, and I'm thinking, are you serious? This is not going to go well. I'm like, Dana's going to get so mad. And I just remember every time I'd show up, it seemed like I'm like, he's out here again? What did you guys do this time? And that was, I think, one of the biggest things that drove me nuts is when you would have to basically see them off, and they would go back to the house, and then you would show up the next day, and you never knew what was going to happen. You never knew if somebody got in a fight at the house, or, you know what I mean, we had a guy not make weight, or, you know, I find out, like with Corey Hill, God loved the kid, that he'd never been in a fight before, and that part for me was mentally just, you know, I'm like, oh, my God. I think it was just too much uneven ground for me, because you never knew what was going to happen, you know?
Amazing. I mean, good times. I remember at that time, you know, I was always standoffish to you too, you know, because I remember like seeing you around when I would see you in the gym. I was always standoffish because, I mean, to tell you the truth, I was jealous. You kicked my butt, you know. I wanted my revenge, you know.
Oh,
and
I'll tell you what. God. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, it's funny that you say that. I mean, you got me being a rude host because I'm thinking, oh, okay, I got to say it. It's funny that you say that because I'm sitting there going, dude, this kid is unreal. He's phenomenal. And I just felt just smaller than the name, you know, than you. I'm like, what am I really going to do? This guy, it's just humbling being next to this kid. He's a phenomenal athlete. He's a great fighter. His attitude towards fighting, I can only wish I could pay somebody to give me. You know what I mean? And I'm like, and I used to just sit there and be quite honest. I mean, I'll say it now. People are going to hear this. I looked up to you. I'm like, this kid, I wish I had half of the mindset that you had. And that was extremely humbling and intimidating for me to just be in the presence. I know it's like, oh, I'm in the presence, but that was always the truth, man, from day one, even from the fight that we had till the coaching and beyond. I was just, you know what, I'm humbled every time I'm near him, and I don't know how to relate to him. I don't know how to, to speak to you, but at the same token, I'm like, I'm intimidated as the damned, and how badly did I just want to go, okay, you know what, can I just hang out with you for a little bit, man? I want to learn more from you. And I probably should have, man. I should have grabbed you by the head and just said, hey, dang it, teach me a little bit of how you, I want to learn more about how you do this because I need help, That's the truth.
And that's funny, you're saying that, you were humbled and you looked up to me, and I'm over there sitting there and I'm jealous of you. That's all going on simultaneously.
It's weird, right? I mean, and people, they just see the rivalry or whatever it was, but the reality was, I'm like, this is the one fighter that I wish to God I didn't have this rivalry with. I wish I didn't have, because how badly, especially later on, and not to jump too far, but once we actually did start talking and actually were able to be quote-unquote friends, not that you weren't always someone I didn't look up to, but, once we were actually able to start hanging out more, it just, to me, I'm like, all right, finally, now I can actually get to meet BJ Penn, and I get to talk to him, and you know what I mean, because it was always one, for me, I'm like, I wish I could have been, I just want to chill with this guy, man. I just want to hang out with him and be his friend, but, the way I guess just the way it worked, our destinies or whatever it be, always had us, against each other. And I'm like, I don't like this. I'm ready to, I want to call this quits. But I didn't know exactly how because I had to keep my poker face going, you know what I mean?
Hey, and then, but I do gotta let all the listeners know that after we did become buddies and we hung out and this and that, I gotta say the last time Jens was in Hawaii, I kept trying to call him. He didn't want to hang out. I kept this and that. No, I'm just playing. I know you were busy. I know it was a busy time.
Yeah, BS, you had the wrong number, son. Because I'd have been knocking on your doorstep. Believe that, That no, absolutely. But hey, I gotta ask though. On a personal note, even though it's like on radio, but what's next, man? What's going to happen? What are you going to do? Are you? I'm not going to say done because I don't like to use those words. I'm not going to say retired because I just think phenomenal athletes, they don't retire, they just move to another step. But when are we going to see BJ Penn? Are we going to see him throwing down? Are we going to see him in TV? We're going to see you coaching. What's next for you?
As of now, I'm just gonna be hanging out. Yeah, I'm just gonna be taking it easy. And Dana actually, we had a talk. He really wanted to. He talked to me up here in Sweden. It was just quick. We were at the UFC, and he was asking me a lot of questions and a lot of things because he actually called me a few months ago. Trying to see if he could get me back in the cage and on some different occasions, and I said no, now's not the time, and as far as that, I'm sticking to it. I'm just taking it easy, and I'm just enjoying life. You know how it is. We've been out there so long, and we've been doing this for so long, and with that said, I'm just sitting here and getting ready to open the UFC gym in Waikiki, and yeah, just training the guys, and I just been training for fun, and I got no pressure on myself, and this is definitely it's a tough question for me to answer. I don't every time I answer the question, maybe it bums people out, or maybe it especially the fans that want to see me fight. So it's always a tough question to answer. But as of right now, I'm just taking it easy.
Good. Oh no, and that's the thing. And I don't, like I said, I would never want you to have to say. You don't ever have, like I said, never put a label on it. You don't have to, and that was one thing people always ask about retiring. I just always told them, it isn't. I'm not going to say the word retire or anything. I'm just, hey, man, when I'm done, I guess you'll see me, I'll be out there fishing or, maybe I'll be out there with you surfing or, something like that. It just is what it is. So, yeah, that was always something I wanted to ask. And, I mean, we could do it on a private chat later, but, family and things like that. But I just, I think letting everybody know, just kind of the mindset, where you're feeling, because I know you're always going to be a warrior. You're always going to be that competitor that I've always looked up to, feared, and admired. On a side note, I'll keep that on the hush. No, just kidding. But, and I was just curious, what was next. But that's good, man. I'm glad. I mean, you sound like you're at ease a little bit. You sound like you always sound like you're enjoying yourself. You know what I mean? So I'm glad you're not keeping this sport too far away from you.
Yeah. This is. I bet you know how this feels in a little bit of a when you've ever took some time off. But I like that feeling of not having to be forced to go in there, and get punched in the face. You know how that feels.
Yeah.
And it's day in and day out. So I'm enjoying living a normal life right now.
Oh man, that's perfect. Well, I'll tell you what. For everybody, but just for me personally, I can say thank you for everybody and all that, but I just, it's real cool. A lot of people wonder, they're going to hear it, and they're definitely going to know it now. Just be able to sit back and talk to you and just, and be friends. I mean, it's so cool. I think, it's the epitome of showing why I love this sport, and the fighters of this sport is, there's certain people, you take that animosity and, you move on from that. But the biggest thing is you find out real quick, sometimes the people that you were the angriest at or you used to motivate you end up being, the coolest people that you want to be around. And that's absolutely that. I put you up on that pedestal. So it means a lot for me to be able to sit here and talk to you and be able to, talk to you differently rather than, when you guys going to fight again or when you're going to get after it. But, that's real cool, man. And I'm glad that, like I said, you sound like you're in a good spot. I'm glad you're still part of the sport. You can't go anywhere. You can't go anywhere without bringing me with you. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, Jen. Thank you very much. Hey, on another note, who you got? Who do you got coming up this weekend? I mean, you don't have to pick a winner, but how do you see this fight unfolding? Evans
which
and
one
Jones.
are we rapping about? Oh, you know what? I love Jones. I'm a Bones Jones fanatic. I think he's just a phenomenal young style that, I just like the guy. And again, I love Rashad. I think he's great. He definitely has a big punch. He can hurt you. He doesn't wrestle as much as he seems like he's a lot like me. Like he got away from the wrestling and really wanted to get into the striking. But I think he's going to have to really bring that wrestler back to beat Bones. I mean, I just love the style of Bones. You?
I think you hit the nail on the head. I think the fight lies on whether Rashad can get the fight to the ground. I think that's where the fight lies. If he can get the fight to the ground, he'll be in a better chance. If he can, or if he ends up on his back, or if he ends up on his feet, I think that's going to be favoring John Jones.
Yeah, he's got to go out there. Yeah, see, I'm with you. I mean, you got to go out there and make the kid frustrated right off the bat. You can't let Bones go out there, pick, have fun, and start realizing right off the bat, hey, I can pick on this guy. He's slower than me. He's not as accurate as I am, and then that momentum starts rolling. The ball starts rolling down the hill, and it'll be tough to stop. So I'd like to see Rashad go out there and put the clamps to him early. But it's going to be a great fight. Again, that's the beautiful thing about this sport, man. These competitors are getting crazy, ain't they?
Yeah, exactly. That's what's going on.
All right, brother. Well, I've kept you long enough. I know you're over there in the snow and you get to head to the sun. So, brother, I can't even begin to tell you how much this meant. I can't begin to thank you enough. But I hope you have a great time. And you know what? I'm sure we'll be in touch soon, yeah?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for having me on, Jen. Thank you. Thanks for the interview. And and I'll shoot you a text when I get back to the States.
Oh, you better. You better.
If you answer, though, we saw what happened last time you were in Hawaii.
I'll be knocking on your door. That's no joke. Me and Carson, we're heading that way. You know what I mean? I'm gonna bring my son, and we'll be knocking on your door. You'll be like, "Hey, man, I gotta get this Jens guy away from me. He wants to hang out too much. I just gotta have my Portuguese sausage, and I'm set wherever we're at." You know what I mean?
Hey, one more thing before I get off. How's Abel? How's Abel doing?
Abel's beautiful, man. Abel's Abel. You know that. Kid's running his coffee shop and just doing his deal. He's having a great time. You know what I mean? He's loving Seattle. He's a big Sounders fan, and you know he's Abel. He don't change. You can't change that kid.
Awesome. Okay, well I better get off the phone, and great talking to you, man. We'll take care. Talk to you later.
All right.
Okay.
We'll talk to you soon, bud. Be good. All right. Well, was that not the most insane interview ever? I love it. Talk about history and past and present and future. That was BJ Penn, man. I love that kid. He's what an animal. What a phenomenal athlete. What a great guy. And so again, here on Just Scrap Radio, I want to thank you all for taking the time. I want to thank you all for listening, tuning in, and we'll be out, you know, and we'll be back again hopefully next Tuesday, and with many more people to come. Crazy interviews. We're going to have a lot of fun. Make sure you tune in, leave a message, throw out some comments, tell us who you want to hear from, and then we'll go out and we'll get them. I wish you all the best. You guys have fun, and we'll talk to you soon.